You can call me Judith. I also am starting slowly so that people can drift in. So I
Of
have an
course.
introduction as well. Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you very much, dear participants, for joining today our session. This is one of the series set in Global Virtual Professional Development Program. And today we have Professor Judith Shapiro from London School of Economics. I'm very honored and to call you my friend and my mentor, because we met personally in 2012 at summer school that was organized jointly by European University in St. Petersburg. And from the first lecture of yours, I was caught away with your style, with your interactive games that you were doing with us, and I was really excited when we decided to work together. That was amazing time for me, and I still can't forget that. If you see in chat, we have Professor Kostuchenko's here. She can say hi too. Nadia, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. I'm really happy to see you, Professor Shapiro, with us today.
Good to see you too.
Yeah.
So see, these connections that we had in our past, they have some fruits in our present, and I hope we're going to collaborate in future too. So for now, my informal part of your introducing you is over, and now please go on.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for those kind words. And as I said, I'll start slowly because I think people drift in, both coming late and also getting focused on where they are. And I'm not a believer in 1 hour lectures. So I hope that you will ask questions in chat, or at least just get up and make yourself some coffee if you're drifting off. I'm among those people who, when we were asked by the head of LSE if yes or no on the lecture has had its day, this was before 2020, I voted yes. But still, this is why we do things, because we gather together, we get a sense of being together. So I'll try to be a little bit inspiring to get you to think, because that's what I think the purpose of this is. It's not to transmit information, it's to encourage you to think for yourself. So you have many discussions, I know, on how to be a better teacher, how to be a better researcher. I want to discuss a way of looking at the relationship between teaching and research that can make life a little bit more livable for us and can also transform universities. And I'm really pleased, and I'm honored myself to have Hannah here. That it's been really great, Nadia, as well, to be the mentor to them and see them grow and flourish and become Fulbright scholars, and I hope many other things. It's part of the joy of research-based teaching, is that you get connections with people like this. So this is about me. I'll share the slides. I don't expect you to read it on the screen. I believe in that nothing should be in less than 32 point font, but you can read my Wikipedia entry. And as well, I want to tell you just a little bit about where I'm coming from LSE, because all universities have something of the same task today, to merge teaching and research, but we come from different angles or different directions. And LSE is an example in an extreme direction of being so research-based that students got forgotten. So that I don't teach at LSE. What I do is make life better for students. Nadia has been there and seen it. I do many other activities, but I don't actually lecture. This irritates friends of mine who do. We know how hard work it is, because I get teaching awards and I'm not teaching. That's how they see it. But this is one of my, literally a gig. I teach on a graduate course in management in the music business at our very famous Tile Yard Center in London for music startups, London being as Creative Arts Center. That's me there. And also in Beijing at our summer school, where I've taught the economics of gender. But those are side, and my main focus since 2005 has been on all the other aspects of the student experience, especially research. Now, a little bit about LSE. I don't know if this is readable, but on every slide I put up, there's an invisible sentence, and I made it visible by taking a screenshot that says LSE is a world-leading university specializing in the social sciences. So you've heard of it. I just will mention that what we always come out, because we are only social sciences and mathematics to go with it, we end up being a number 2 in the world rankings among social science universities, just behind Harvard. I don't think we're going to overtake Harvard, and somebody else might, Stanford, but that's where we are, and it's both a benefit and a problem. And that's the first part of it. Then the other part is that I'll come on to is this. LSE was founded, it's not so much me, but see the people behind me. Those are Beatrice and Sidney Webb, leaders of the Fabian Society and leading left social democrats who founded the LSE, and to make the world a better place, quite explicitly. And I myself have always been drawn to that. I was a graduate student there. I always felt this special character. Most universities also want to do that, but it's at the core of LSE activities. Here's why that's a problem. It's a problem because if I'm a teacher and researcher, but I see that my role, I'll take a colleague I have in mind, is to try to stop Brexit, which we failed in as the economics profession, but to try to explain to people why it's going to be so bad, then you can see why it would be logical to give your energy to that and not to your day-to-day teaching. If you are like another colleague of mine, and she's a member of our Monetary Policy Committee, and her job is to figure out if interest rates should go up or down and whether the economy will crash or not. And again, she cares about students a great deal, but you can imagine the tension between the two. So in general, because LSE's research is so focused on policy and making a difference, it's very easy to see that that is what takes center stage. Whereas if you are, in fact, an expert in Old Norse literature, you don't feel the same burning need to carry on and immediately help the world. The LSE's motto is to know the causes of things. It isn't just to add to policy, but to understand. But we sort of pride ourselves on our uniqueness, and that's a disadvantage. You're coming, and most other places like SUNY, which has been rising in the rankings, I know because I lived in Soviet Ukraine, not too far away in Kharkiv, that I know that SUNY really came from nowhere. It is one of the newest universities in some sense, rising enormously fast. I know from our Ukrainian students the enormous reputation that it's getting. It's coming from the other angle, basically from teaching to research rather than research to teaching. And those are different problems, but what I'm going to discuss today has a single answer in some sense. And that is this, and I take this from, I don't claim originality for this part of it, the idea of a connected curriculum for higher education. We have a pro-director, that is a deputy chancellor or whatever your leader is called, Jilly Fung, and we stole her from another university in London, one that Nadja has been at, UCL. And she's our pro-director for education. She's a charismatic person. She really believes this, that she talks about, and she loves this cartoon, which you'll find online elsewhere. Research and teaching, why the disconnect? And now she's not the first person ever to have said this. We had, in fact, her predecessor as pro-director for education, who's now our pro-director for research, by the way, who's a legal scholar. And she spoke about, and that was the first time I'd ever heard that phrase. We always talk about research-based teaching. And the idea is that because we're researchers, we do better. That the people you have at SUNY who do research can teach you better. And she said, but I also do teaching-based research. And that was a wonderful phrase, or education-based research. My students inspire me. They ask tricky questions. I have to explain that. So my teaching benefits from my research also. And Dilly doesn't emphasize this as much, but the idea in general that what she calls research-rich university should do. The title research university isn't so attractive because it implies that the teaching is secondary. Okay, and this is her model. We're going to go through this, which you can read, and her small book is downloadable. And I know that you, the audience, most of you, not all of you, but most of you are not yet in positions where you can decide what the university does, but you can move it in that direction and see all the connections there. Connections are multiple, and I will go through them. But before I do that, I have a second motivation, not just in creating this wonderful university where we all are happy and we learn from each other and everything is wonderful. And I go into the classroom and I come out with a great research idea. The student goes into the classroom, also does research, really learns. This is all very nice, and Zilly is great at painting it. But I have a second motivation for why we have to do this. We have to change how we work. And one of the reasons I'm happy to give this talk is that I can see that you who are coming from around the world can help move it in that direction. It isn't just academia, but we are suffering the worst in some sense. And that's because there's no end to our competition. And it's the competitive mode, which I think is destructive to academia as well. That is, rankings become everything. And it's one thing to talk about broad brush rankings, but, you know, are we number 2 or 3 and so on? And the point is that I myself, having suffered from it a few years ago, burnout gets you slowly. It is not like extreme stress. It slowly depletes you. And what happens is that if you work 14 and 15-hour days, it will get you. Even if you're loving your job. And that we are all in this situation where, as I'll show you, if you do the calculations, the new technology isn't making it easier for us because it's expanding what we can do. Now that I can make a video on Loom, I have to make it and then I have to edit it because it isn't quite perfect, and I have to upload it and I have to learn how to do it. And instead of the usual 1.7 hours behind every hour of contact, I have much more. The research has gone crazy on the internet. I lost count and started to cry when there were 30,000 economics articles on COVID-19. I thought Martians will come and say, you know, if we find them on Mars as we're looking, they'll come and say these people, when they're in trouble, they chatter, endless chatter. They do it on this thing called writing. And there's no time to read because we're all writing so fast. There's no field of knowledge in which can be quite useful, but there's just so much of it. And we are obsessed with pouring it out rather than thinking and doing it slowly. Look at the great economists or the great thinkers just 40, 50 years ago. They wrote so much less, and it has lasted so much more. It's so much better written because they didn't publish their second draft. So now this is a symptom of burnout that I found amusing because I think only another teacher would understand it. Do now, you know, read pages 12 to 580 or whatever, you know, and do all the questions. In other words, you stop being able to choose tasks for your students. You're just too tired to select for them. And so, and again, it happens slowly. It comes from doing too much and feeling stressed on time, never having enough time. Let me go. Here's the WHO's official definition of burnout. Burnout is a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress. Chronic, right? This is not the question of some emergency. We all had an emergency on top of this chronic stress. We went into this crisis already tired. And I think, I imagine it speaks to most of you. And it's not been successfully managed. It's characterized by 3 dimensions. I'm sure you all have had it. Feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job, and feelings of negativism or cynicism about one's job. Now, if you are always like that, you probably would not be taking this certificate course. You're not in the audience, but you can have that excitement and then lose it. And getting it back is very difficult and can take years. So it's important when you're going that way to be able to take that break. And we do not do it enough. We don't insist on it. Just before I logged on, I got an email from a group I belong to at LSE, volunteers on mental health champions. And our job is supposed to be to, screech that everybody's working too much. But the jobs have to be done and people are not listening enough. So I hope that we can yell louder on that. Because the cynicism, I've had it. I look up suddenly. My job is to help students, and too many of our students are interested basically in making money. I can't blame them, but that's what happens. And I look up and I'm trying to help somebody in their application to do a master's degree in finance. And I thought, what am I doing? Why am I wasting time? It's that sort of thing, as opposed to wanting to help them and understand them. And that happens when you do too much of it. Okay, so the other thing that you all recognize, this is another cartoon, by the way, cartoons on burnout as well. You can find them on the web. Just Google under images. There are too many of them. It's remarkable. But it's that 24-hour availability that's the problem too. And so, there is the psychiatrist saying, or psychologist saying, you have this burnout because you feel that people can get to you at any time. And he's on his phone saying, just a second, my boss wants to speak with me. I myself suffer from this. I feel I must answer email right away. I have not been able to get over that. Anybody who has tips on how to do that, let me know. I know that one colleague once had an automatic answer message that said, I'm only answering email in 2 slots a day. So my next slot is at 3 p.m. And I thought maybe I should do that because I feel I must do it immediately. It's partly because I feel I'm speaking with people when I do it right away. And I'm very disappointed when they don't come right back. I think if a student writes me, they should wait for my answer. But they're being more sensible. They're not tied all the time to their phone, or maybe they are, but they're talking to their friends on WhatsApp and not on email. Okay, so there's the, help, behind the piles of papers. We really have it. If you try, and we all feel we're not working fast enough. So this is an article. This is before COVID. The university has become an anxiety machine. It has happened elsewhere. Economists have struggled with this question. I put to some of you who are in economics that Keynes had a wonderful article called Economic Prospects for Our Grandchildren. And we would be his great-grandchildren, or you would be. And he foresaw a 4 or 3 day week. Why don't we have this 4 or 3 day week? We're all terrified that there's no future to work, right? We're going to have robots. So how about having this 4 or 3 day week? And my simple answer is that, as a microeconomist, is that as we have got richer, especially that university people are better off than we were 30 or 40 years ago. That isn't true of lots of people, certainly in Ukraine and in Britain and the United States. But certain, segments of the population, we have gained a lot. And the trouble is, the value of our leisure time, the opportunity cost is so much greater, we almost feel like we can't afford to sit still. And that's been the problem. So I don't know how that changes, but the cost is enormous. And I find it a bit of a relief to read that 37%, I think that's what the numbers were. Let me see. Okay, the majority of staff, this is one university, had at least one unpaid half day at weekends. Well, I consider just working one half day at weekends an easy load, right? It's getting that half day off that's a problem now. Yes, 18% working a whole day, right? And 41% felt their workload had a negative effect on their mental health. I want to meet this other 59%. Typical symptoms included disruptive speech, depression, cognitive impairment, not brain fog. It's amazing how it can get to you, and you just can't focus if you are not sleeping well enough. And why does it happen? I have always loved this phrase. It's from Bulgakov, a novel, which is set actually in Ukraine. It was one of his early novels, Zapisky Univa Notebooks of a Country Doctor is how it's translated. It's a young doctor. And he had arithmetic is a cruel science. And what he meant by that is, in the morning, he was a Zemstved doctor. In the morning, he would get a queue of 40 patients, and he would have to spend 10 minutes each on them. And that's 400 minutes. It adds up, right? And you can't get around that. And the same thing is true if you have a pile of essays to give feedback on, and it's taking you a half an hour each, and you have 100 of them, that's 50 hours, mate. There's no way around it. And that's what he meant. So this is a quote from the same article. It's our Higher Education Academy. I think it's interesting. It's called the Higher Education Policy Institute now. It was originally funded by the government, and the government took away the money, so it raised it in other ways. And I think that I would encourage you in Ukraine and elsewhere to start a higher education academy. It could be, doesn't have to have lots of staff. They can be part-time in the beginning, but focus on the problems of the universities. But anyway, what happens is this particular study points out new workload models make it worse. For teaching assignments, it used to be the case. One classroom hour is 1.6 or 1.7 related hours behind it. I always said 2, but that's the idea. That 2 hours for every hour that I'm going to teach. I don't know how you rate it yourself. Maybe I should have asked that question instead of the others I've asked. When are we going to do the opinion poll, Hannah? Should we break to do that?
Yeah, anytime we can do this.
Yeah, we'll do that. I think I'll finish this bit and then we can do it. So now you need the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint has to look beautiful. Then you'll notice that when we've started recording lectures, that we don't just roll over last year's, right? Even in mathematics, which doesn't change a whole lot from year to year. And so everything has to be better. We give more to students all the time. The lecture video needs editing. Student email inquiries need responses. That used to be a good thing, that you didn't have to write an email, a letter to students and put it in a pigeonhole and wait for it to come back. But the burden can be enormous if you're responsive. And then you have to have marking criteria. As you know, when you propose a new course, the things you have to point out and get approved in advance are enormous. And the research on top. And in the end, we end up with 70, 80-hour working weeks. That's just the reality. And everybody who can't get those essays marked in less than half an hour feels guilty. It's always been like that, right? That everybody feels guilty and rushed. Okay, so wait, back, I think. Let me go back. Okay, yeah, the blank slide was to signal that we should put the, that's a signal to me that it's time to put the questions up.
Okay, dear participants, you're gonna see in chat
right, yes,
the link to the form, and I encourage you all to go there. We have only 3 questions with the scale developed by Professor Shapiro, and some extra questions about who you are. So please use the form, and we will wait till the answers will come up, right?
But everybody should take a stretch, have some coffee after they've answered.
Larissa Vorontsova has a question, right? Or
Yep.
you raised
Yep.
your hand?
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Your name is not going to come up. The question,
I'm sorry.
it's strictly confidential. I just want a sense of all of you.
So Larissa?
Yeah, I'm sorry, good morning. Well, I guess good afternoon. I am having issues with my chat. I'm not seeing anything and it's blocked. It's telling me that I cannot send messages because I'm not member of the chat. So I'm not seeing any of the polls.
Okay.
Nor could I type a message into the chat to tell you that. So I do apologize.
It's funny. Yes, yours is marked external, I see now, as opposed to guest, which most people are. That's an
And
issue.
I don't see any guests. I only see email addresses either.
Oh, yes, you've been ostracized.
Okay, Larissa, I'm so sorry that you can see the Google form, but you can use Mike to ask your questions anytime. So, okay, as I understand, most of participants already gave an answer, right? No, not all of you guys. So please, I encourage you to go through the form, and we will proceed. We already have a question in chat, Professor Shapiro. Maybe you will use this time
Please,
for answering. Yeah, so Yefiminka Alina is asking, what are the methods of avoiding burnout?
Well, avoiding it when you have pressures on you is difficult. That's why I was skeptical about our mental health champion's ability to go to a department manager and say somebody is being asked to work 80 hours. So you must take breaks, and you must not sit wondering about the things you're not doing when you take those breaks. So you need the kind of exercise and engagement and nature. It's very common sense, but I don't believe you can fight it by yourself. That's why I'm offering this different way of looking at how we run things, because we have to be more conscious about it. You need a university that's aware of it. I'm sure SUNY would be like that. We are trying to do that at LSE. There is a national organization of mentally healthy universities. And basically, when you have to do something that you're not inspired to do, I myself try not to groan and rehearse it. I just do it. If I'm writing references for people, and I know that it's hopeless because they're not going to get the jobs there, or the graduate, they all want to go to Cambridge for graduate work. They're not going to get in when they don't have great records. I just don't angst about it. I help them, but I don't do that. But if you work more than 14, if you work those 14-hour days, there is no way of avoiding that. So that's the very first thing, is to actually work out how long things are taking you. Go to the manager and discuss this with colleagues. All the tips I have read won't help if you do not get enough rest. Now, sometimes in a new project, you can get so excited that you can overlook that, but it's not going to last, and that's when the danger starts. Okay. Yes, should faculty avoid administrative responsibilities? It's a very, can you do that? My own sense is that, well, I don't know your gender, but it tends to fall most heavily on women, right? And at first it's tempting, but in fact, the burden can be enormous. So I don't know your situation. Here is the dilemma. At LSE and a number of other British universities, we very quickly went into an administrative mode that the Americans do, in which we hire administrators who are not academics. And they do a lot of our work. I don't handle admissions, for example. I make the rules about who we will admit. I explain to the people over in admissions what the rules are, and they do it. We have 15 applicants for every place, so you can do the arithmetic about what that's like every year, since we read every single application. But I don't have to do it. My predecessor had to do it. The trouble is, I'm not in charge of our admissions also. I think I set these rules, but I know that if I want something, I have to wheedle it. So it's a Faustian bargain, as if you know this phrase, a pact with the devil, that American universities made a long time ago. That's my answer to you, is that if you avoid it now and hire people to do them, you will no longer be in charge of your university. And then we have the audit culture, in which is part of the other burnout syndrome. So administrative responsibility should be shared, equal, rotated, all those things. But when we start passing them over entirely to administrators, we will lose out. We will not get the same sense that we own it, if you're in a situation where your university is contemplating this. That's my own view. It is not, it's a good subject to have a debate on. It's a wonderful question. Other questions in the, I don't see any, but.
Okay, so we have now at least half of participants answered the poll. So what we're going to do, Professor Shapiro, I will share the results to the screen.
Terrific.
Yeah, good.
Yep.
So I will do that if you allow me. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So when we are talking about, it's a little bit jumping. Why? Because we have additional answers. So if you see the scale for the first statement, I have so many demands on my time. I will just put it like a little bit bigger like that. I have so many demands on my time that I'm constantly stressed and in danger of burnout. You see that majority of people are here.
Yes.
For some of us are 5. You're right.
This is right. Yeah.
Yeah, so the next one is, my research has to come first, as that is what my position and promotion depend on, and not my supervision of students of teaching. So actually we have here, most of us are at average, like disagree or agree or somewhere in the middle. And then 10 comes with disagree more, right? And we have the last question. It's not possible to ask undergraduates to do real research. Still hesitation here between 1 and 5. And at the same time, can we just... Yeah, but most of the answers are here, like disagree, right?
Yes.
Right.
Right. So most of them think that. They're not so sure, but they think they don't have. So that's great, because I will address that in the second part of this.
Okay. I'm stop sharing right now.
That's great. Thanks very much. Okay.
And yeah, go on with your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. So someone asked a question about research and collaboration. Since I have had this job, but it was already what I did when I was in Moscow at the New Economic School. Everything I did in my research was collaborative. We had to do that at the New Economic School. We had only graduate students, and we had to economize on doing our research and got funding for it. And we had teams, and they were essentially also your research assistants. Our Department of Political Science at LSE does this very well. We don't do it enough in economics, but everything I do, I find it great to design it that way. You can think of labor-intensive activities that will add. I'll invite any of you who want to collaborate, for that matter. I'm going to give a keynote at a webinar we're having of our Office of National Statistics, our state statistical committee, on the gender pay gap. And my topic is the gender pay gap over time and space. I go back to Leviticus and the Bible, where the gender pay gap was 40%.
I'm so sorry, Professor Shapiro. Are you sharing the presentation right now with us, or?
No, I'm not, but I don't know why not.
Yeah, I just need to share content again.
Okay, there we go. Let's see if it's here. No, that's not it. That's my timetabling.
Yeah, good. We see that. Thank you.
Okay.
But it's now your Zoom meeting. Is it your slide right now?
Yeah, no, I have to get my slides. I'm not in the right place at all. I'm in my other Teams. Just a second. Okay.
Stop sharing, and then again, if you will.
Yeah, well, the trouble is that I'm not getting, obviously, when we usually put that up, we disconnected, and now I have to reconnect. Okay, stop sharing options. I do not see where the slides are. Okay, that is, I see my PowerPoint, but let's see if that will. Are we getting anywhere?
Yes, I can show your slides and assist you further.
Instead of wasting time on my finding it, that's great.
Okay, we'll be happy.
Right, that's great. So it's after the blank. So on collaboration. I'm going to give you examples. This is a quote. It's from, there's also some other reading at the end that I'm not going to read out on research and education and making them all seamlessly one. So as an example, when you start to think about it, there's so much that students can do even at the very earliest stages of their knowledge. It's harder in economics than in some subjects, requiring a certain amount of technical capacity first, but there's so much else you can do just to read and do a literature review before you learn some econometrics. So I know absolutely nothing about the gender pay gap in Ukraine, for example. I know something about it for China, but I haven't read the latest things, and I do not read the language. So I'm inviting students to work with me on it. I do miserable PowerPoints. I would love it if somebody helped me do the PowerPoints. When we have finished with the webinar, I want to make a survey article on the gender pay gap over millennia and over the whole world. And I certainly can use both student assistants and expert junior colleagues to work with me. I think that you'll notice that research has been going this way. It's a little crazy sometimes to see 14 authors, but it's possible for you to manage that. So I'm working on several separate topics now, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without that. I would love someone to help me attack this stupid article on Ukraine, which tries to hint that there's sex selective abortion going on and there's really lots of males being born. And it's a very stupid article online. It hasn't been published and I don't have the time to download it and attack it. So that's an example. And I don't have too many students from Ukraine. We have quite a few, but they're rather busy with exams. Our Office of National Statistics has a competition and I work with the students, but there I don't do the research myself, usually. Last year it was on sustainable development, which most of you would have loved, I think, but it's not my special area. This year it's on the economic impact of COVID and how we measure things, which I do know a lot about. But our students are busy looking at how we measure GDP, how we measure prices. It's been a nightmare to measure prices in the pandemic. I don't know, again, how it's done elsewhere. It would be great to have people from other parts of the world contribute. So, and our students come from all over the world. So that's part of, and right now they're located there, some of them. So I've spoken to students this morning in Shenzhen and Shanghai and so on, Singapore, as well as London. So that, yes, you can do collaborative teaching if you think of the right type of teaching and the right type of research, rather than, I understand my colleagues who are already super famous sticking to what they were doing. But if you start to think about it, there's so much that could be done, but only by a lot of people. So I think that that's what I would encourage you all in, and it would be great if some ideas came out of that. So, and in general, in economics, we tend to act as if we have the truth when we come in. And I think it will help economics if we make it a little more clear that these are models that need empirical evidence. Okay, does that, I hope, answer that question? Okay, next slide, I guess. Hi, this is what I think it should look like, a classroom. I have what it really looks like with our lecture halls, but this is an example. This was at the University of Warwick. It was on women in economics. I was pretty obnoxious and insistent that it be open to men also, but you'll see I'm very relaxed there. You know, I'm not in the slightest bit burnt out. Whoops, here I am, because somebody else is doing the exciting work. And I noticed that you have the arrangement of tables. At SUNY, because I have one of my talking, you have the arrangement like this, which is collaborative. And you'll find a lot of universities do not have this yet. We had to spend quite a lot changing that. We have some wonderful classrooms now. April Fool's the year before, there were jokes about that, about how we outfitted one for £1 million and what it did. But you don't have to have the latest high tech. You need tables for people to sit around, and you need chairs that pivot so they can face forward. You need decent acoustics. Now you need good air conditioning. All these things are important. But these kinds of tables and smaller classrooms are important, rather than just the large lecture halls. And that's how you get the groups together. So this is my idea of what good teaching looks like. Next slide. This is what it really is like a lot of the time. this is our Sheikh Zayed Theater, and it's one of our better theaters because the stage is not way up, it's level. And also, right now, everything is packed, but this was our open day. But as you can imagine, some days it isn't packed, and it's better not to have separate seats that way so it doesn't look empty. And going down the stairs isn't so hard, but it seats 420, and that's small. We actually use a West End theater, a ballet theater. We use it in the daytime, and they use it at night, which is crazy. Somebody left it to us and the Sadler's Wells Ballet jointly, because he had this genius idea that we don't teach in the evenings and they don't dance in the daytime. And so we share this darkened West End theater, and this is not the way to have collaboration. However, when we have our education symposium, I have found talented lecturers who go down into the audience with their microphone, and you can do something with that. I only once have ever had to talk in that theater. When you do that, you have to do it as if you're playing Hamlet, basically, or Ophelia at least, because you have to get across to it. But this is not the setup, and it shouldn't be lectures that are at the center of things. These things can just as well be recorded. And that will free you up. If you play last year's recording, that will free you up to engage students. I have colleagues elsewhere in Britain who claim that they can engage with up to 200 or 300 students that way. I'd like to see it. Next slide. Okay, here I am in Sumi. And you can see the arrangement there, although I can't say that I was as interesting as the person I showed earlier in Warwick. But it was very exciting to see that you have these there, and everyone should look at the architecture of that. Sumi has maybe the advantage of being newer, and some of the older universities, Oxford and Cambridge, have this problem, that they just don't have the right facilities unless they get new buildings. Okay, but engaging with people, then letting them talk to each other and come back to you, that should become so natural that it's no longer exciting. Next slide. Okay, so this is the idea, right? And this scholarship reconsidered, that the idea is that we don't divide teaching from research. We are all doing scholarship. We're teaching, or we are learning, and we're doing it together, this idea of partnership. We can talk about it if we don't really believe that we can learn from students. If we don't believe they can do their own research, it's not going to work. So try it and see, but learn perhaps from other people's examples. So next. Yep. Okay, so, the other thing is that our students care a great deal, as I know that the people in Sumi do, about the shared responsibility for a sustainable future. And that this is another way in which we have a partnership sense, because we have a question of a shared set of common values, not just you're getting ahead or my getting ahead. So sustainable development is something that can shape all of our lives. Yes, okay. Next. Yeah, okay. LSE is very big on global impact, but I think that most universities can do that. We aren't keen on setting up little LSEs elsewhere. We have a summer school. We don't have little branches. But what we do have is alumni all over the world, some of them presidents of countries, and or certainly ministers of finance. And I think that everyone and every university at its own level can do this, both locally and nationally. We have a special London orientation, but we don't have enough of a local one in London, and maybe we should. So this engagement is very important and exciting, and it's part of the sense you have at LSE, but everybody can do it. It's not a special thing that the web's invented. Okay, next. Yep. Okay, now, this is where I differ a bit from Dilly again. You see my thing in red. We have evidence on research-based education works better. That is that if you are a researcher, you'll do a better job of exciting the students when you talk about your own research. But don't forget the education-based research, not just the research-based education. That's the lesson today. Next, I want to give you some example on that. Okay, so there's no doubt there are benefits and evidence from that, that when you, and any student, not just the top students, can learn from people who hear about the latest developments. It has to be presented clearly so they can understand, but the evidence is there on that. Okay. Next. Okay, now here is the reason for it. What this says, I see I didn't move it over right. This is Richard Feynman, the famous Nobel Prize-winning physicist who has great lectures online with a wonderful Brooklyn accent. As it says online in my second slide about me, I'm from New York, but I'm not from Brooklyn, and he has the classic accent. As if you want to master something, teach it. And he has some wonderful quotes on teaching that way, that this is part of what you learn, but you also, I stress, you get questions from students that give you a new way of looking at it, and it can come from any student. It doesn't have to be your next stars. Okay. He has many other good comments on teaching and research. Okay. Yep. Next. Okay. So here are some of the places that you can look, inquiry-based learning. Now that's different from the fact that you've done the research. You want to set students out to do it. That's very important. I jokingly say students need better Googling skills, but you may have noticed that some students are good at that and know everything, and some students don't know how to find anything. So I really think that when students arrive, we should have a Googling competition. Or a competition you can win by Googling. I set some students, our economic history department has the students have a journal, again, encouraging students to have a journal online. It can be beautiful nowadays and doesn't cost a lot to print or anything. But they're called the Knowles Journal. And I knew right away what it was after, because the very first head of department at LSE, an economist, was an economic historian named Lillian Knowles. And I was big on that because LSE has always had a place for women. You saw the webs. There are not any other universities in the top 50 or 100 that were co-founded by women. But I asked the students, I said, for £5, why is it called the Knowles Journal? They were inviting people to write for it. And 3 people came back and they had all Googled it. I thought that I would have been more impressed if they had known, but they came back. I said to the first person who did it, in about 20 seconds, that clearly they knew what they were doing. They immediately did that. So test yourself on that. See what works and doesn't work. Googling has got harder because there's so much more there. The order you put things in matters. Right. But I have all these readings. There are 3 slides that list them, which we won't go through today, but are there if you want to convince your colleagues to give you more time for research and yourself that it's valuable for your teaching. Okay, but inquiry-based learning is different, and they have examples there of what you do when you actually pose a research question, even to first-year students. And it's difficult, it's tricky, but it's exciting because it's original work and it can be done in groups. Okay. We were very traditional about that. Any questions now on any of that? People have examples, by the way, to share with each other that work. We're very happy to share some of our teaching materials and other universities in Britain have those, and this Higher Education Policy Institute. Right. Okay. Yep. Next. Right. So here are some places you can look, and these aren't any LSE ones. Okay. A first year workshop on peer project methods, how to work together, how to learn to work together. It's not easy. So you want people to actually look at how they do it, right? Someone who's a natural leader may try to do everything for people. They need to learn how to be a leader, not a substitute. Somebody who tends to sit back, and they need it too. The University of Edinburgh, one of our great universities, has an interdisciplinary first-year course about global challenges. We have one called LSE 100. Now, they all sound wonderful from afar. So I just caution you about LSE 100, that everybody is enthusiastic about it, but the students taking it. And we are trying to change it. But at first it was exciting. And then it lost its way a bit. And in general, we have had a lesson that you may also challenge or not. If it doesn't count towards their record and their transcript, they don't work hard enough on it. You can get them so excited, but if it's really going to be the kind of work that has an exam, as opposed to a product you can put in a student journal or student magazine, then it won't work. But the Edinburgh course does work. Scotland is different. They have 4-year university, and in the first year, you're just exploring. Britain doesn't have that luxury. The British system is 3 years and very specialized. It's clear that the Americans paid attention to the Scottish example when they set up their system, and I envy them that. And the colleagues at Washington State will appreciate that they go out to recruit students from the first year students. Okay, and Leuven, which is, again, got some really wonderful examples in which you get service opportunities. You get to go out into the community. You could have a sustainable development project, for example, as part of your course. Our sustainable development, we have a giant and important department in this, but they don't go out in the world to do much except to travel and watch. Okay, so all these are examples of things that can be done. Read about other people's examples and learn from them. People love to boast about them. They'll never be as good as it sounds on screen, but read about it. Okay, we're almost finished, I think. Yep. Okay, so how do you set up a connected curriculum? The next slide after that, that's the thing. There's a download there, but the point is that you need this partnership, students connecting with researchers. You need to work out what they're doing all the way through. I don't know about you, but we don't sit down enough to work out what students do in year 1, 2, and 3. People teaching them sometimes don't know what they've studied before. They certainly don't know the topics. Maybe you don't have time. We need people who specialize in that. Then again, students ought to be able to make connections across their subjects, right? But we teach them so separately. We almost teach our subjects competitively. You know, ours is better. Economics is better than sociology. And I believe it is, but that's another question. I'm teasing about that. But we have a different point of view, and we should be able to understand other people's. Again, they should be able to connect academic learning with positive work skills, and students ought to produce outputs. I mentioned articles, but videos have turned out to be a fabulous thing for students to produce. I don't know how much of it you do, all of you, but it's amazing how excited and involved students can be in producing a summary or a popular output after they've done some work. Okay, and then students need to connect with each other and with us. And all of these things are part of the whole atmosphere, which includes making students partners means listening to them much more than I'm inclined naturally to do until I realize the originality that can come from that. Okay. Next. Okay, so again, the core principle is there, right? You're learning through research and inquiry. Your teaching is research and inquiry. It's all part of a whole. Yep. And we could just go through. Okay. And those are the questions you should be asking, right? What are your students doing? Are we really helping them to think, or are we helping them to memorize? You know, we have to look at the incentives we're giving them. We had to go online with our exams because of COVID, but we wrote different sorts of exams which test thinking. And I believe that our students will know more than they used to. If we had simply tested facts, they could look them up. So we had to test it in a different way. Not everything's been negative. Right, next. Okay. And then connecting with other researchers, right? Not just in your fields, but across fields. I don't know about you, but I get great joy from writing to researchers. And I promise you that if anybody writes to somebody because they've read an article or paper online, they'll 9 out of 10 times you'll get a delighted answer. So when you read things, think of all you young early career researchers, think of writing and getting involved with people. It's a great joy. Okay. And this is from UCL, which is a university or college of the University of London that runs across a lot of subjects. Okay, so they actually got academics to come and discuss what they were doing. We do that at LSE, but not in the curriculum. We do it what we call co-curricularly. I would invite any of you who are interested in economics that at the moment when we have to do it online, anybody can come, and we've had 5 Nobel Prize winners this year. And because when LSE invites them, they come. That's a secret, I think. They're flattered. And it was really great because you got about 40 people. It's not just in chat, by the way. We also organize it so you can put up your hands and ask your question. You're called on. We don't, you don't just speak, or you could, but it's a great opportunity. I suspect some of you, precisely because you're so far away, could get some of these people, the opposite of the LSE syndrome. That is that it's sort of exciting to go to Ukraine. We're just about to hire somebody who speaks fluent Ukrainian. He hasn't explained to me, well, also Russian, but he lives in Western Ukraine. So we'll see about his coming to lecture. I've never tried. I tried to do it in Russian, which wasn't great, but my Ukrainian is not up to anything like that. Okay, but meet your researcher, meet people, get your colleagues to present themselves that way. If you have personal websites, that's a way also to attract students to understand your whole way of working and what you're interested in, what you would like to partner with. Right. Next. And again, the template on how to do this through line is in Dilly's book. Right. Okay. So you can find it. How do you do a storyline on what the students do? And we also have experimented, but it hasn't taken off, maybe because of COVID, but we had students do a portfolio of their work. Artists do this, but they can do them in management and economics and subjects like that, where their work over 3 years was collected. So they took it away with them. They took it physically, but of course you can do it online. Okay, and this is the short showcase portfolios that you get students to do. Our experiment has worked on this, but we paid them to do it. So Dilly got the money for it. Let's see if it works when you just have them do it. And the prize is having your own narrative of your 3 or 4 or 5 years. Okay. Blogs are fabulous for this, and vlogs, video podcasts, all those things. Have a YouTube channel. Yep. Okay. So again, now, interdisciplinary is hard for some subjects. It's easy for management. I think management is inherently interdisciplinary and draws on many areas. But right now, I have a problem that we're going to have an interdisciplinary conference, and they're inviting students, and you're supposed to suggest panels. It's on one day. And our economic students don't know any people in sociology. They know people in political science, but not that far away. So they're not getting the same take on things. And yet another area we would like to see a project in is the homeless. I used to think of it as a sociological problem, but I have read articles now that look at it from the point of view of housing policy. I don't know how much of a problem it is across different countries that you're from, but an international comparison is there. The countries that do it well, like Finland, it is useful to see how expensive that is. They say it's not more expensive. Okay. Okay. So interdisciplinarity is not always popular, right? Some disciplines are more envious of their standing alone. But management is one area where it should be able to, you should be able to combine the challenges, the ethics, all these things. But the idea of having a multidisciplinary team we do that. We have an activity called LSE groups in which you're thrown together with people from another area. And also our students do, and yours could also, and you could help them with it, do pro bono free projects where they advise people in other countries, for example. Okay. Then I like this least, but the reality is we have to prepare people to be able to go out in the world and do things. And again, a management department should do this brilliantly. What you're learning and how it can actually be applied. That's really all I need to say on that. Okay. Now, not all of you are European. This is UCL's, okay? Engaging with Europe, but it can be engaging with your region. But the idea of some course in which you actually try to apply what you're learning. You have people come in who have policy problems, and you tell them what you think you have learned that might help them. You can help with legislation, speech writing. It's amazing how much clever politicians will want to make of students and young researchers. Okay, we've really covered this one, this outward facing. It's the same thing. That is, don't just write assignments and have exams. Have the students do something that affects the world. Okay, and meet other students. And again, the sense of community, which we are very low on at LSE. It's part of the London experience. We don't have a real campus, but you have a campus at SUNY. But other places, I don't know if all of you, where you all come from, but many of you, if you have a campus, make the most of it. If not, you need a virtual community. Then get your alumni. Get them early. That is, don't let them get away and then 3 years later get back to them. They're all the social media to involve them now. So we have alumni groups actively, but I do know that the time to get them is just when they're graduating. So it's a habit and they don't leave. Okay, so there's one, the idea of physics students doing short videos. Economic students can certainly do that. Our ideas are more challenging because we're confused. They're not confused. They just have complex ideas. We're confused and we don't have answers. But the idea again of the public understanding of a subject, that certainly can be true about anything to do with climate. to explain it. So all these things are possible. I will caution on one thing. At LSE, we launched too many all at once, and some of them lack critical mass. So don't try to do 17 things all in the same week. Just be aware of that. And don't at first be discouraged if the turnout isn't so great, but students have to be, and your colleagues together, they have to be addressed not in a group email, but individually. I think that's important, especially for drawing more senior colleagues in. So this is how it all fits together. Again, you can read it. This is advertising Dilly, not me, but I believe in it. It has been inspirational. As an example that we're going to end up finishing with as well, we have something called change makers, where we have students decide on discovering what's wrong in, for example, they simply go out there to find out how many students feel disconnected and not being cared about. Are there problems with women students? Are there problems with other groups like that? You have international students. How do they feel? And change makers take an area and then they present them with their proposals. Okay? And again, it's collaborative with researchers. Okay. So those are some of the ways you can do it. But this is the important thing that I have to break to you, which is that if we don't reward people who are leaders in these areas, who take on the responsibility, some of which will be administrative, it won't last. And you know that. So you have to try to be change makers to slowly, tactfully nudge your university that way. Some of you have already got those positions and are making the most of it. This is an example of what you could be doing that you can next get your students involved in. Okay, it's your turn. Okay, so people have their own ideas.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Shapiro. And we have, I believe, questions in chat. The first three were answered. So we are waiting for more. Please use your mic if you want to, or just put your question in chat and we will go on with discussion. May I start? Because the question in survey was actually, how to say it, very timely for me. It's you've put it like it's mostly impossible to involve undergraduate student to research. That is challenge always for me because we are leading students in research, and sometimes maybe that is the marker of burnout syndrome because you don't see the outcome, like the outcome that you expected to see. And sometimes it's discouraging educators to go on with that. So we still do our attempts, but maybe we're not good at it, you know? And sometimes just failures discourage us. So what do you think, what we should do with this, you know?
One of the tips that I have had on this when we have research projects is that the problem is that students' attention span in life is limited. They pass by you. So you should see each student as making a contribution, which might take several years. So one student hands it over to another. And this is what our one of our colleagues particularly notes, and they do this extremely well at UCL in the sciences. So they have final contributions in chemistry, but they're done by several years because it takes too long for one student. They've moved on since then. And the point is, again, on some burnout, just no time to think. It's amazing how if you take the whole day off, you'll have new ideas, right? You must know this. we had our Easter weekend, you did too, and Saturday I refused to do anything, and Sunday I suddenly had 5 new topics that students could research in the summer. I want to get some funding for summer work on this, and I didn't have any topics when I took the time off, because you need that peace and meditation time. LSE pays this woman to chatter to us on email once a day, but I ignore her, about your 10 minutes meditation. But anybody who wants me to forward it automatically to them, they can have their 10 minutes, a reminder that you need this quiet time in order to think, because you have to think about what can be done by these students. And also, I would say, I'm not as disappointed when it doesn't work out if the process helped them. We had a project, which I will not repeat, I'll tell you why, on suicide. It was a great idea, and I gave an extremely good, interesting, I thought, talk at the European University of St. Petersburg. But I can't, now, we began to be concerned about this phenomenon of teenage suicide, which is a new thing, relatively. And I can't afford to have someone commit suicide at LSE while I'm doing this project, even though the literature tells me that, and you may have learned this, if a student comes and you're worried about them, raising the question of whether they feel suicidal is actually good for them, the experts say. But I don't feel it would be seen that way, and we have had several. We don't have as many. Why they cluster at the University of Bristol? Are they epidemic? Do students learn from each other? But it was a great literature on the subject of suicide, and behavioral economics has something to say on it. But it didn't get anywhere, and now I'm not going to want, we didn't finish, and now I don't want to come back to it. But I know that they learned a lot on the way. However, yes, for my own research, it had better be more fruitful. But you can do your own while they're buzzing about too.
Thank you very much. Actually, I've met just yesterday a paper that confirms me that measuring happiness increases happiness. That's why maybe we shouldn't ask about suicidal mood, because that is encouraging the same thoughts.
Yeah.
I agree with you totally. We have another question from Nadia Kostuchenko. I'm so happy to see you, Nadia. Do you think education based on interdisciplinary courses will give more chances for students' research? And do you believe interdisciplinary is the future of education?
I will be very brief. I'd like to hear other people's views. I think it's right, but I have trouble. I'm a disciplinary person. Economics is particularly keen on that. Even when it goes into other areas, it then colonizes them and does it our way. There's a sense of superiority, which isn't deserved, but it's there. I believe that interdisciplinary work is important. I believe in multidisciplinary work, if you see the distinction. That is, it needs to be coordinated. We have several different angles, but disciplines help discipline. I can see that, agree. And that getting many people together to work on climate change is valuable, but smudging it all together so that there's no real body of knowledge or way of thinking that comes from it. So having respect for the other discipline is different. Making it, and maybe we'll make that point actually at this LSE, the 17th of June, and be lynched for it, but I don't know. But the idea that it should be multidisciplinary rather than interdisciplinary, yeah. And that's where subtly, you don't even have to, don't go on the stage and make a big deal about that distinction, just do it. You say you're doing interdisciplinary work, but really, nonetheless, don't just give up the way you were approaching things. Hannah, I think you're muted.
I'm sorry, I was so excited. Actually, I had just a little comment that I'm multidisciplinary researcher too. So as Nadia, I believe, is. Dear participants, you can unmute yourself if you want to have a conversation in voice, or you can put another question in the chat.
And remember, it doesn't have to be just questions. It can be in your opinions.
Yeah, some opinions. We have a lot of thank you, madam, grateful words. And your point about that some disciplines are competitive, we are behave competitively, I mean, as representatives from different fields. Do you think that this is another part of our burnout syndrome, that we are trying to show off and try to prove that we're good enough being in management studies or economics or, I don't know, mathematics or something? Do you think that this competition between disciplines just add a little bit in this flame of burnout syndrome?
Yeah, well, I think on balance, it's not helpful. A little bit of competition, a little bit of competition is good, and too much of it, right? Without the, the Olympic thing, or, it's not the winning, but the taking part. If you don't feel that way, but you feel that winning is what you must do at all costs, that's part of burnout. So it's very important to, and so competition between disciplines, competition between universities. One of the great joys of being in a university is that the other, no other area of work I know where it's less competitive and more cooperative. That should be how we feel. That doesn't mean that you don't compete a bit, right? So.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much. Okay. Anyone else, please?
Thank you for all the thank yous, by the way.
May I add a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Just a small note according to the last statement. I've just thought that these statements are really close to Johanna's dissertation thesis, in fact, like competition. So probably you can tell a little bit about that in the context of today's speech.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that opportunity to speak a little bit about my temple and my lovable competition. We will proceed on competition on the next seminar. I believe Paul Ciambaretta will put a lot of light to this phenomena. But this is true, as I noticed, and I do interviews on that phenomenon. In research and development between institutions, we have a lot of fair competition and sometimes unfair competition, which takes place. Let's forget about the blindness. But at the same time, when we do see the cooperation as the powerful driver to our own personal growth and growth of our teams, the innovations became so visible for us and for other bodies. It's tremendous growth. So I truly believe in cooperation between the strong players, let's say players, because we became strong players in competitive battle, and then we just admit that another person has strengths and we respect him or her as a great partner in this beautiful game, because this is still a game. We're still playing the game of minds. Okay, thank you very much for that, Professor Shapiro. I can't express, I don't have words to express my happiness to see you online. Maybe we were going to see each other one day in person. You're always welcome in Ukraine. So maybe after COVID, we will see each other.
Yep, that will be wonderful. I was wanting to be there this spring, and maybe next spring or the spring after. My email is on the slides if anybody else wants to write me as well. And I will try not to feel I must answer the same hour, however. But I'm really happy to engage with anybody. I see people from many different places, all of which we have some LSE students there too, I imagine, but I'm always happy to meet colleagues as well. Okay.